get to know history a little bit. A lot of people don't know history. So my name is Danute and I emigrated to the United States when I was almost 4 years old. My parents fled Lithuania during World War II, which was, they fled Lithuania in 1941, and then they wound up in a refugee camp in British-occupied Germany, which is where I was born. And then we came to America in 1950. My parents did not want to come to America. My parents didn't want to do anything but go back to Lithuania. They were in a refugee camp. They were hoping that the World War II would end and that they would be going back. That was their intent. When they left Lithuania, they thought they'd be gone for 6 months. The war would end, you know, Lithuania would be free again, but Lithuania was occupied by the Soviet Union until 1990. So my father never went back, and my mother went back. 1977 was the first time she went back. So their hopes coming to America was that they someday would be able to go back. When the Soviets came in 1939, Lithuania was divided in half. Subsequent to that, the Germans came in. When the Germans occupied Lithuania for about 4 years, they started to retreat when the Russians came in. When the Russians came in 1941, my sister, who was, she was probably 11 or 12 years old at that point, was visiting an aunt in the countryside because she had probably had bad asthma. I don't know exactly what she had. She later on developed tuberculosis. There were, from what I understand, I mean, many discussions about my father trying to get to my sister because the front was there. So they tried that, and everybody told my father, "You'll be killed, and then you'll leave your wife and these 2 boys. Leave now, and you'll be back in 6 months. She's fine. She's with an aunt." So my sister got left, and my father never saw her again. She was brought up by what was then called a spinster aunt, you know. And so my mother saw her when she was like 11 or 12, and the next time she saw her, she was about 48, 49. So all of the rest of the relatives stayed. The only people who got out were my parents and my 2 brothers. Nobody else got out. Okay, this is a picture when my mother is a teenager. So my mother was born in 1909. This is my mother. This is her siblings, sister and 2 brothers, and her mother. These are my 3 siblings, probably, I'd say maybe in like 1935 or so. Again, heavy woolen coats, all sewn and knitted hats by my mother, of course. This is our passport pictures when we came to America. So my father, my mother, and that's mine. And this is me in my Lithuanian costume going someplace, I don't know where. So I was really little when I came here, so I had no notion of where I was or what was going on. I was like not even 4 yet, so it was between 3.5 and 4. And that we arrived in New York City is where I grew up, in New York City. But I lived sort of a schizophrenic life because I got into school at whatever age, 6, I guess. But my whole other life was Lithuanian. We didn't speak English at home. None of my parents' friends were American. Everybody intended to go back, but as time went on, I think they realized that that was not going to happen. As I said, the next step to independence was 1990 when the Soviet Union grew up. So from myself, I can just say that I lived a dual cultures. When you're forced out, you eventually have to decide, this is my life. But you don't, they did not give up on those memories and experiences that they had in Lithuania, or even the life that they created for themselves in the displaced person camp, in the refugee camp. My father came here, he was almost 50. I didn't speak a word of English. You know, and you're just dumped in this country and you got to figure it out. So as I grew old, you know, when you're little, you don't know what the parents are doing. You have no idea what your parents do. You're little. But as I grew into an adult and then eventually had my son, you know, reflecting back on it, I mean, they were tough. You know, they were really, really tough. And when I grew up and I became a parent myself, you know, I was just eternally grateful, of course, that my parents were the only ones to leave, because my life would have been sheer hell over there, as my sister's was. So it's not a matter of getting tougher in my own personality. I think it just makes you grow bigger knowing the world's history.